Come on, Sophia, don't you dare leave there. Breathe. Breathe.
Is she even alive? Oh my God!
Somebody call 911. I'm a taxi driver. She's in cardiac arrest. I am not letting her die in my car. You hear me?
Sir, stay on the line. Are you still doing compressions?
Yes, 1, 2, 3. I've got no pulse, no breathing. She just collapsed in my back seat. Sir, I'm just the driver. I did CPR because I couldn't sit there and watch your daughter die in my back seat.
A young black Uber driver named Jamal was about to end his shift when a desperate call came through. He had no idea his passenger would collapse in his back seat. What he did next saved her life. But when her billionaire father arrived at the hospital, what happened will restore your faith in humanity. You need to hear this entire story. It was 11:47 p.m. on a cold November night in Manhattan. The kind of cold that cuts through your jacket and makes every breath visible. Jamal Williams, a 28-year-old Uber driver and nursing student, sat in his 2012 Honda Civic, exhausted down to his bones. He'd been driving for 12 hours straight, navigating the chaos of New York traffic, dealing with difficult passengers, and surviving on gas station coffee and protein bars. Every dollar mattered. Every single fare brought him closer to his dream, finishing his final semester of nursing school. He was $15,000 short, and graduation was just 4 months away. The thought of being so close yet so far kept him driving when his body screamed for rest. His finger hovered over the go offline button on his phone. His back ached. His eyes burned from the glare of headlights and neon signs. He'd promised himself he'd stop at midnight, and he meant it this time. Then it happened. One last ride request popped up on his screen. Upper East Side. 5-star passenger rating. The pickup location made his eyebrows raise. It was one of those luxury high-rises where doormen wore uniforms nicer than his Sunday best. One more ride, Jamal thought, accepting the request. Then I'm done. For real this time. He navigated through the late-night traffic, past the glittering storefronts of Fifth Avenue, until he pulled up to a building that screamed wealth. A doorman stood beneath a gold-trimmed awning, and through the glass doors, Jamal could see marble floors and crystal chandeliers. Then she appeared, a young woman in her mid-20s, wearing an elegant black evening gown that probably cost more than Jamal's entire tuition, stumbled slightly as she walked toward his car. Her name was Sophia Ashford, though Jamal didn't know it yet, daughter of real estate billionaire Richard Ashford, whose name was plastered on half the buildings in Manhattan. Something was immediately wrong. Even through his fatigue, Jamal's trained eye caught it. She wasn't drunk stumbling. This was different. Her skin looked almost translucent under the streetlights, a sickly pallor that made alarm bells ring in his head. Are you okay, miss? Jamal asked as she slid into the back seat, genuine concern overriding his exhaustion. Just take me home. I don't feel well, Sophia whispered weakly, her voice barely audible. She gave him an address in Greenwich Village, then leaned back against the seat, closing her eyes. Jamal adjusted his rearview mirror to keep an eye on her as he pulled into traffic. His nursing instincts were screaming now. Her hands were trembling uncontrollably. Her breathing was shallow and rapid, too rapid. Beads of sweat formed on her forehead despite the cold night air. He'd seen these symptoms in his clinical rotations. This wasn't just feeling unwell. This was something serious, something potentially life-threatening. His heart rate quickened, adrenaline cutting through his exhaustion. Miss, are you sure you're okay? Do you need me to take you to a hospital? He asked, his voice steady but urgent. Sophia didn't respond. Her head lolled to the side. 3 minutes into the drive, weaving through Greenwich Village's narrow streets, Jamal glanced in the rearview mirror again. His blood ran cold. Disaster had struck. Miss? Jamal's voice cracked with urgency as he glanced in the rearview mirror. What he saw made his stomach drop. Sophia had gone completely limp, her body slouched unnaturally against the seat. Her face had drained of all color, not pale, but a terrifying grayish blue that every medical student recognizes instantly. Her mouth hung slightly open. She wasn't breathing. Time seemed to slow down and speed up simultaneously. Jamal's heart hammered against his ribcage like it was trying to escape. His hands gripped the steering wheel, so tight his knuckles went white. In that split second, 1,000 thoughts flooded his mind. Most people would panic. Most people would freeze, overwhelmed by fear and uncertainty. Most people would fumble for their phone, call 911, and wait helplessly, praying the ambulance would arrive in time. But Jamal wasn't most people. He was a trained nursing student who'd practiced CPR hundreds of times on rubber dummies in sterile classrooms. He'd studied emergency protocols until they were burned into his memory. He'd imagined this exact scenario during countless lectures. Now, that training, every single hour of it, would mean the difference between life and death. There was no time for doubt, no time for fear. He swerved hard to the curb, tires screeching against the pavement. A taxi driver behind him blared his horn and shouted something unintelligible. Jamal didn't hear it. He threw the car in park, killed the engine, and exploded out of the driver's seat, ripping open the back door with such force it bounced on its hinges. Come on, he muttered, his training taking over like autopilot. He pulled Sophia's limp body onto the back seat, laying her as flat as possible in the cramped space. Checking for a pulse, he pressed 2 fingers against her carotid artery. Nothing, not even a flutter. His hands moved to her chest. No rise and fall. No breath sounds. Cardiac arrest. Without hesitation, Jamal positioned his hands on her sternum, locking his elbows, and began chest compressions with practiced precision. His full body weight drove down with each thrust, compressing her chest exactly 2 inches deep. Just like the textbooks said, just like his instructors had drilled into him. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He counted aloud, his voice steady despite the chaos erupting around him. Pedestrians stopped in their tracks. A couple walking their dog froze on the sidewalk. Someone screamed, "Oh my God, call 911. Cell phones appeared, some people recording, others frantically dialing emergency services. A small crowd began to form, their faces illuminated by streetlights and the glow of their screens. Jamal didn't stop. He couldn't stop. Sweat poured down his face, dripping onto Sophia's dress, but he didn't wipe it away. His world had narrowed to this single moment, this single purpose. 30 compressions delivered with mechanical precision. Then he tilted her head back, checked her airway, pinched her nose, and delivered 2 rescue breaths, watching her chest rise slightly with each one. Nothing. No response. His arms were already burning, muscles screaming from the exertion. CPR is exhausting, far more physically demanding than most people realize. But Jamal refused to quit. He went again. 30 more compressions, counting each one, maintaining the rhythm, 100 to 120 beats per minute. 2 more breaths. Come on, he whispered urgently between breaths. Come on, stay with me. The crowd grew larger. Someone shouted that an ambulance was on the way. Another voice yelled, "Is she breathing?" Jamal blocked it all out. There was only the count, only the compressions, only the fight to restart a heart that had stopped beating. After what felt like an eternity, but was only 90 seconds according to his internal clock, something miraculous happened. Sophia gasped. A raw, desperate intake of air that was the most beautiful sound Jamal had ever heard. Her chest heaved. Her eyes fluttered open, confused and unfocused, but open. She was breathing. Shallow and labored, but breathing. "Stay with me," Jamal urged gently, his voice hoarse with exhaustion and relief. He carefully turned her onto her side into the recovery position, supporting her head. "Help is coming. You're going to be okay. Just keep breathing. That's it. You're doing great." Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. Red and white lights painted the street as an ambulance screeched to a halt behind Jamal's car. Paramedics jumped out, already in motion with their equipment. "What happened?" the lead paramedic asked, kneeling beside Jamal. "Cardiac arrest. No pulse, no breathing. I administered CPR, maybe 2 minutes total. She just came back," Jamal explained rapidly, his medical training making his report clear and concise. "Probable anaphylactic shock based on presentation. She said she wasn't feeling well before she collapsed." "Good work," the paramedic said, impressed. "You saved her life." They loaded Sophia onto a stretcher with practiced efficiency, hooking her up to monitors, starting in 4-line, placing an oxygen mask over her face. Jamal gave them all the information he had, which wasn't much. Her name from the Uber app, her pickup and drop-off locations, the timeline of events. Within minutes, they rushed her into the ambulance, sirens blaring as they sped toward Mount Sinai Hospital. And then, suddenly, it was over. The crowd dispersed slowly, murmuring to each other. The street returned to its normal late-night rhythm. Jamal stood on the sidewalk, his back door still open, and finally let himself feel it. His hands were shaking violently. His legs felt like rubber. Adrenaline drained from his system, leaving him hollowed out and trembling. He collapsed into his driver's seat, staring at his hands, hands that had just brought someone back from death. He'd just saved someone's life. Actually saved someone's life. Not in a simulation. Not on a dummy. A real human being who would have died right there in his back seat if he hadn't acted. But sitting there in his old Honda Civic, still catching his breath, Jamal had no idea whose life he'd saved. He didn't know about the billions of dollars, the real estate empire, the powerful father who was about to learn that his daughter had nearly died. He had no idea how dramatically this night would change his future forever. All he knew was that he'd done what he was trained to do. He'd done what was right. And sometimes, that's all that matters. At Mount Sinai Hospital, doctors stabilized Sophia. She'd suffered a severe allergic reaction to shellfish, anaphylactic shock that stopped her heart. Without immediate CPR, she would have died within minutes. The emergency room had been a flurry of activity when the ambulance arrived. Dr. Patricia Chun, the attending physician, had seen countless cases in her 15-year career, but the young woman's condition was critical. Her lips were blue, her pulse barely detectable. The paramedics had already administered epinephrine, but it was the continuous chest compressions from a bystander that had kept blood flowing to her brain during those crucial minutes. "Get her on a monitor. I need vitals now," Dr. Chun had shouted, her hands moving with practiced precision. The team worked seamlessly, 4 lines inserted, oxygen mask secured, medications administered in rapid succession. After 20 agonizing minutes, Sophia's heartbeat steadied. Her breathing normalized. She would live, though she'd remain unconscious for several more hours. When Richard Ashford, her father, received the call, he chartered a helicopter from his estate in the Hamptons. The billionaire real estate mogul, known for his ruthless business dealings and skeptical nature, burst through the hospital doors demanding answers. His silver hair was disheveled, his tie loosened, his usual composure shattered by fear. "Where is my daughter? Who brought her in?" He barked at the nurses, his voice echoing through the corridor. A doctor approached, her face calm but serious. "Mr. Ashford, your daughter is stable. She's alive because of a young man who performed CPR, an Uber driver named Jamal Williams. Without his quick thinking, we wouldn't be having this conversation." Richard's face softened for just a moment before hardening again, his jaw clenching as he processed the information. "Where is he? I need to speak with him." The hospital had Jamal's contact information from the ambulance report. Richard's assistant tracked him down within the hour. Jamal was back home in the Bronx, still processing what had happened, when his phone rang from an unknown number. His hands were still trembling slightly, the adrenaline finally wearing off. "Mr. Williams? This is Richard Ashford. You saved my daughter's life tonight. I need to see you. Tomorrow morning. Please." There was something unfamiliar in the billionaire's voice, something that sounded almost like vulnerability. The next morning, Jamal arrived at Ashford Tower in Midtown Manhattan, feeling completely out of place in his thrift store suit. He was escorted to the penthouse office where Richard Ashford stood by floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. "Mr. Williams," Richard said, his voice thick with emotion. "Sophia is my only child. Her mother passed away when she was 10. She's everything to me." Richard turned, and Jamal saw tears in the billionaire's eyes, something the media had never captured. "Last night, a stranger, someone who owed us nothing, saved her life. Not for money, not for recognition. You did it because it was right." Richard paused. "Tell me about yourself." Jamal explained his situation, working 60-hour weeks driving Uber to pay for his final semester of nursing school. How he'd been rejected for scholarships. How he was $15,000 short of graduating, but refused to give up. Richard listened intently. Then he picked up his phone. "Cancel my 10 a.m. Call Columbia University Medical Center. I'm endowing a scholarship. Full ride. And get our foundation director on the line." Jamal's eyes widened. "Mr. Ashford, I don't need." "Yes, you do," Richard interrupted firmly. "And more importantly, the world needs more people like you. Your nursing school debt? Paid. Full scholarship for your final semester. And when you graduate, if you want it, there's a position waiting for you at Ashford Medical Foundation. We fund free clinics across New York." But Richard wasn't finished. "I've also spoken with the mayor's office. You're receiving the Citizen Hero Award next month. The city needs to know your story." Jamal was speechless. Tears streamed down his face. 3 months later, Jamal graduated top of his class. The story had gone viral, not because a billionaire rewarded him, but because it reminded people that compassion transcends race, class, and circumstance. Richard Ashford, once known only for his business empire, transformed his public image. He established the Jamal Williams Healthcare Heroes Fund, providing scholarships to underserved students pursuing medical careers. To date, it's helped over 200 students. Sophia recovered fully and became an advocate for allergy awareness, helping pass legislation requiring better EpiPen access in public spaces. And Jamal? He now works as an ER nurse at Mount Sinai, the same hospital where he brought Sophia that night. He still drives Uber occasionally, not for money anymore, but because he says, you never know when someone might need help. When asked about that night, Jamal always says the same thing. "I didn't see a billionaire's daughter. I saw a human being who needed help." That's what we should all see. One act of humanity changed 2 lives forever and inspired thousands more. If this story moved you, smash that like button right now. Subscribe and turn on notifications because we bring you real stories that restore faith in humanity. And hit that share button. Someone in your life needs to see this today. Now I want to hear from you. If you were in Jamal's situation, would you have stopped to help? Or have you ever helped a stranger in an emergency? Drop your story in the comments below. Let's celebrate everyday heroes together.